What's up, guys? My name is Ben, and today I want to take you through the cleaning and restoration process I went through with this PowerMac G4 from 2001. What we have here is a PowerMac G4. This is a digital audio model. It's one of the 733 megahertz models, so this is one of the highest end ones they had from this revision, from this speed bump. This has got a NVIDIA GeForce MX2 inside of it, and it would have been a pretty costly configuration if you bought it back in 2001. Would have set you back about $3,500. So very expensive and not in too good a shape. This thing got, I don't know if it got heavy use, but it got, kind of beat up along the way. Am I surprised? Well, not really. Like the blue machine, this thing came from a school environment. Looks like it came from a school lab. And yeah, computers that come from school labs are usually pretty worn down. But outside of that, like it's still in good shape. It's dusty, dingy. It's got scuffs and scrapes on it, and so I'm gonna see exactly how nicely I can clean this machine up. And I'll go ahead and maybe give a little spoiler. I'm actually pretty impressed with what I was able to do with this machine. As junky and grungy as it looks, what you saw in the pictures and the before pictures, it ended up turning out pretty nicely. So like I said, I got this machine. This actually came from the same trip I made when I went and got the blue computer. This was one of the other computers that I bought from the guy that was in his storage unit. He was trying to, like I said before, he was trying to sell me a lot more of these machines, but I don't have the space for that. And I already have too many machines, but I couldn't really resist the idea of adding one of these graphite towers to my collection. And funny enough, this is actually not the first time I've had one of these graphite G4 towers. And I've actually had one of these model before, a digital audio. So I got it. The first one I had gotten it from the Goodwill. It got shipped up to me, and I thought it was really cool because it was the first G4 tower I had ever owned. Well, back then I was kind of thinking like, oh man, I have too many computers in my place. Little did I know I was gonna have even more eventually. So what ended up happening is when I bought my G4 Cube, I gave my digital audio tower away to my friend Jonathan, and the tower wasn't, that tower actually may have been in better shape than this one was. It was a 533 megahertz, if I remember right, single processor model, and I gave it to Jonathan, and I don't know whatever he ended up doing with it, but this is not my first go around with these digital audio machines. Like I said though, I couldn't exactly resist. Just because it makes the collection a little bit more complete. Now I have one of every G4 tower, one of, I guess really this whole mini tower format that they had going on up until the PowerMac G5. And I guess the notable thing about this machine, the digital audio series, is that it's the last of the G4 towers that used the graphite plastics. Every machine after that, they started to use this, I don't know, I guess quicksilver color. I was never exactly a fan of the graphite colored towers. Like there's nothing about them that really, inspires me or anything like the blue tower did. Nothing so eye-catching about it. However, I will say that the graphite is actually pretty trim and pretty handsome when you have it sitting in front of you. So I can see why Apple, went with this color for the professional series. And even though I really like the blue color and I wish it would have stayed around longer, I could see why they did it. So one of the things about this machine, and I knew it from the moment I picked it out of the heap of PowerMacs that were in the storage unit, is that these plastics were going to need some definite care. Uh, by default, what I find when I'm doing these projects is that just cleaning the dirt and the grime and the dust off of the plastics really makes a big difference, like alone, without having to do any other work. So if you just can rinse it off with water, or rubbing alcohol in some cases works well too, depending on what you're trying to do. Just getting the stickers and the grime and the crud off of it really, really helps. And you can kind of see that already. But for this project, I knew, since this machine has a lot of shiny plastics on it, shiny glossy plastics on it, I knew that they were going to need to be like buffed out. So I found this stuff. It's like a polishing kit. It's called Novus. And I don't know if I found it from Mac Rumors or YouTube or Reddit or whatever, but this is like something like people would use this on their iPods, on the plastic fronts of their iPods, and it works almost like kind of like a car wax, but it's a 3-stage system. So you use the first bottle to get heavy scratches out. And then you use a second bottle, you put a second coat on there to get lighter scratches, and then there's like a spray mist that you'll use to just go through and polish it the rest of the way up. And it really does kind of work like car wax, right? So the bad thing is that you're putting, these fine, very, very fine scratches into the plastic, and you're also kind of, wearing the plastic down, you're buffing it out. And so if you go and you look at this stuff with a microscope, or you look at it in the right light very closely, you can see, the crappy thing about this is I've added hairline scratches to the plastics. However, if you stand back and you look at it, it really does make a huge difference. It really cleaned things up. These look a lot sleeker and shinier and more polished, and just, they'll never look like they did when they came out of the box. But I was able to get it really, really close using this cleaning kit. The big caveat, it's a lot of work. You're seeing, here I'm using my GoPro camera's time-lapse feature, but the amount of work that went into polishing and buffing these plastics out was a workout. I actually at one point went and turned the ceiling fan on because I was getting such a workout out of it. And having said that, I think it's good. I think it's good. I would recommend it to other people trying to restore their plastics or clean their plastics up, for sure. One of the things that seems to work really well on the interior of the case, and also particularly these ribbon cables, is the magic erasers. They take the grime like right off. It works very, very well. There came a point where I don't know, I got tired of it, and so I kind of switched to cleaning out the rest of the inside of the computer, just to give myself a little bit of break, because buffing those plastics was tedious. I mean, those side panels are huge. So go ahead and clean up some of the matte plastics. Those are nice and easy to do. And I think I actually needed to super glue. Yep, there I go. I'm super gluing one of the prongs back onto the plastic. It typically works pretty well, but you really can't stress that whatever was broken, you can't stress it again, so you have to be very careful with it. So now I am cleaning out the there's a shroud that goes over the heat sink on the CPU on this model, and just cleaning that out. A little bit of rubbing alcohol, and I guess I can say overall, this computer was a lot less dusty and dingy, and kind of in the dumps compared to the blue computer. The blue computer was that was a lot of work. It was just so filled with dust and dirt and grime that, I don't know, I went through a lot of magic erasers, I went through a lot of paper towels, I went through a lot of Q-tips trying to clean that thing up. And I even took some of those plastic panels and, cleaned those up just by running them underwater in the sink. But this machine, a lot less work. Still needed a good amount of work, but not anywhere near as bad as the blue and white computer. One thing I love about these PowerMac G4 mini towers is that you just look at how much progress and how quickly Apple was moving at that point in their history. That late 90s, early 2000s time frame, it was just like new models every 6 months for years. And I'm sure that was, just a massive amount of work to keep up. So for example, that blue and white computer, the PowerMac G3 blue and white, that was introduced in January 1999. And the PowerMac G4 that we see here, the digital audio, was released just 2 years later in January 2001. And if you look at like the amount of progress that they made in that 2 years, I mean, you're looking at, so that the case style is relatively the same. They changed the coloring and some of the stylings on it. But you look at like the processor and whatever. So they jumped from a G3 to a G4 processor. The low end processor option on the G3 was 300 megahertz. This digital audio here was 466. But where it really starts to come into play is in the top end options. So this, the blue and white G3, that topped out at 450 megahertz. This model, and actually the one that we're looking at right here, topped out at 733 megahertz. So that's, a whole new chip family, and, I don't know what, almost 300 additional megahertz, all in less than 2 years. Just leaps and bounds back then. I'm certainly not the first person to notice this or make note of this. 65 Scribe also, I think it was in his iMac video, basically made a similar point, only in a more comedic way. With how quickly the iMacs, those colored gumdrop iMacs, were getting speed bumps, like seriously every 6 months. So like you buy this computer and you turn around and then there's a new one on the market. So for years, Apple was doing this. And, it's such a contrast to, the low energy that we saw out of Apple during, the last couple Intel years. And if you're a Mac faithful, I mean, I don't need to tell you, those years were definitely trying. Like anything after really like 2013 up until, I don't know, 2018, 2019, when Apple, admitted that, they messed up with the Mac Pro. Those years were just kind of like lost years. I think a lot of us were worried and concerned that like Apple was just giving up on the Mac altogether. They didn't care about it. They only cared about iPad. They kept pushing these ads out there that were cringy about, the what's a computer ads. It was a trying time. And I think the thing about it is like, you have this generation of Mac users like me who, kind of came into the world of like Mac and Apple and stuff like that during the days where like it was like every 6 months or so there was new hardware. And then to go from that to like, all of a sudden, the Mac Pro hasn't been updated in 6 years. They're still selling a 2014 Mac Mini in 2018. We kind of thought the end was near on the Mac. Like they were just gonna let it rot and languish. And thankfully, that ended up not being the story. Now I kind of think like, okay, maybe they were pushing the iPad. The iPad and the iPad Pro stuff is like a holdover until they had, the whole Apple Silicon chip ready for the Mac. Funny enough, now it kind of seems like the iPad is dying. Luke Miani, I don't know, recently made a couple of videos about how, like, it seems like the iPad hasn't really progressed since 2018. And to be entirely honest, I'm fine with that. Like, if the iPad needs to go, let it go. I don't, maybe it doesn't need to be, innovated on and such in the way that, you know, people think. I was never really a believer in the iPad. I have one. I have an iPad Air 3, but, well, you've seen it in these videos, but, just not a fan of it. Way too restrictive, and I don't know. I guess it's good for some people, but I'm really, really glad to see that Apple has shifted a lot of focus back onto the Mac, and if it's come at the expense of the iPad, well, totally cool with it. Keep going, stay the course. Don't let the bastards get you down. All right. Enough controversial statements. Back to the task at hand. So yeah, I'm putting another coat of the polishing. I don't know. I'm thinking this is the deep cuts, deep scrapes formula that I'm putting on there, just because this panel is difficult, more so than the other one. It had a lot more damage on it than the other side did, and so this is, it took me two attempts, two coats, two run throughs to try and get this into a state that I was happy with. This is actually perfect. So I started with the deep scrapes formula, and the brownish formula I put on is the fine lines, fine scrapes. And now it looks like I went and also sprayed that, but it was really quick. All right. So now we're at a new day, and I am ready to put the final panel on. But that didn't go so well. So I made a mistake. I put the logic board back into the frame, and in order to get that panel on, you need it to snap in, and I just didn't want to put pressure on the logic board in order to make the board snap in. So here I'm taking the logic board out. We're gonna actually, secure this board, or secure the panel onto it, and go ahead and put that logic board back in. Tedious. But you know what? I want to do it the right way, and so, that's what we're gonna do. All right, we're just getting this board secured back in here and screwing everything back in. Looking at that, I'm about to replace. So I've got a couple of questions about the screws. I just want to make sure I'm putting the screws in the right place, because I'm kind of haphazard about things and don't really keep track of which screws go where. I mean, relatively I do, but I'm not labeling them or anything like that. So here I'm putting the processor board back in. I decided to put a little bit of thermal paste on it, just because, I don't know, it looks like there was a little bit, and it's super dried out, but it also kind of looks like maybe it doesn't need it. I don't know. I just put a little dot on there, and then secured it down with the heatsink. So I'm putting the graphics card in. And the graphics card had a little bit of an issue because there's a green tab on there, and I broke the green tab. The plastic's kind of fragile. I tried super gluing it, but it didn't hold. Very sad. So doing the thing with the compact flash cards again, I seem to really like that. I actually think it works really well for these older machines. Just to get a compact flash IDE adapter and put a little card in. I especially seem to like these PCI adapters, because you can pull the card in and out from the back of the machine without even having to open it up. So seems to work quite well for these older machines. All right, now we're getting down to it. We're about to find out if this machine actually works after I put it back together. We got the Apple Cinema display hooked up and keyboard and mouse. And here I have some 10.2 Jaguar CDs that I'm gonna install 10.2 onto this thing. I could potentially put 10.4 on it, but I have a system. You'll see eventually what I'm planning on doing here. But we're just going through the basic standard install, and I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if it's a 10.2 thing, or maybe the compact flash card I shouldn't have cheaped out, and I should have got a faster one. But the performance didn't really impress me on this machine, to be honest. Like when I boot 8.6 up on that G3 machine, quite fast and fluid feeling. This felt mostly fluid, but it seems like, I don't know, the single processor system and whatever with it, I feel like these early versions of Mac OS do really, really well on dual processor machines. And so part of the reason, one of the things that, I never really liked or appreciated about these models is, like, Apple went to dual processor configurations with the gigabit Ethernet models, and then after that, it was like they really didn't dual processors all that much. So you could have gotten a dual 533 megahertz processor on this box, but most of them were single processors, and I feel like that kind of hurt or hindered the performance of Mac OS, especially these early versions where things weren't optimized. All right, well, I was rambling about that stuff. We got 10.2 installed, and I'm now installing the 10.2.8 combo updater. I have that combo updater on my daily driver MacBook Pro, but in order to get it over to this machine, like at this point, the easiest thing to do is to just plug an Ethernet cable in and turn file sharing on the target computer and drop the file into the computer's public Dropbox. It's just trying to deal with the flash drives and the different disk formats and stuff now. Like, modern Macs and this vintage of Mac no longer play together very well. All right, that about wraps it up for this episode in the series of PowerMac restorations. Hope you liked it, liked watching me work on this. Hope you liked my commentary. If you did, leave a comment. Let me know about your digital audio machine. Subscribe to my channel. There's going to be more computer restoration videos coming out soon. And I'll see you in the next one.